Hi, Zizaran here with another video for the upcoming Crucible League, and this is Cold DoT Elementalist. An absolute powerhouse, and has been for quite some time now. Hardcore players might be a little bit worried about the fact that it is an Elementalist, and obviously physical mitigation is not the best on this, so if you're looking for an incredibly tanky build, look somewhere else. Now if you're a softcore player and you're thinking, wow, am I gonna die loads on this? It is actually quite tanky. Sporting around 6.3k life, like 1000 energy shield or close to it, and you have the elemental Aegis. So it is actually incredibly tanky, and you do have spell suppression, but physical mitigation is definitely going to benefit from things like Taste of Hate. So for playing this build, it's really cool that you can have Vortex on left click. Click the move in place thing, and you're basically running while casting Vortex. So everything that gets close to you is going to die. We also have Creeping Frost and Cold Snap, and you could use just Cold Snap for clearing, probably will be enough. When you need damage, you want to try to keep a Vortex, Creeping Frost, and Cold Snap on the boss. Because while multiple Vortexes, the damage doesn't stack, but the damage from each individual cold damage spell, the damage over time will stack from that. So that's how we're going to play at the endgame. And if you feel like it's too many buttons, you could 6-sync your Vortex and just forgo the Creeping Frost, but you will lose a lot of damage. But if you feel like it's too click intensive, this could actually be a really unclick intensive build just by having Vortex on mouse button 1. If you're less mobile or you don't have two hands, this is a great choice for that because you can just run around. Righteous Fire would be even better for that purpose. If watching these videos helps you have a good league start, please consider subscribing to the channel as it helps me and my team a lot. So for those that haven't followed one of my guides before, it's a normal step-by-step guide, so it's very easy to see where you're putting points at what time, and ascendancies are also baked into it. Bandits and things like that is in config up here. And an important thing to note for this guide is you can see in the bottom left that it says developer mode. The reason for that is Path of Building hasn't been fully updated yet. It should be updated before launch, so I would just wait until it actually loads in your normal POB with an update. And if it doesn't load before a league start or the day before a league start, we're going to post new versions in the description, which will be using the old POB and just assuming the new skill tree. It should be updated fast enough that I don't want you guys bothering with downloading the dev mode. In the skills, it is very step-by-step as well. You can see that you start out leveling with like Freezing Pulse and Frost Bomb. Each thing is grouped into different categories so that you don't end up with too many skills and you see easily what you can drop at each level. In the items, it's the same thing. We've grouped it up so you can see what is good early, and then early game, mid game, end game, etc. The number one stat you can get for this build is cold damage over time multiplier. It's a lot better than just spell damage or cold damage. An important thing to explain for this build is I have Malice. Nearby enemies have 50% increased fire and cold resist. And I would assume that a new player is going to be really confused why we're using that on our build. But when we're cursing and using the cold exposure on enemies, if something has minus 20%, it's actually going to be increased 50%. So that would put it at minus 30, I think, because math is hard. So it will increase it negatively. With all the curses and stuff, end up something being minus 50, minus 60. This is going to do a lot of extra damage, and that's what makes it so strong. Very, very cool interaction. In the non-armor version, because this doesn't have any armor and we're going to get a lot of large fist hits, we have Dawnbreaker because we have cold and lightning and physical damage taken as fire. You particularly want the physical damage taken as fire to be high, and a Taste of Hate is really good as well. These are particularly tank-related things, so if you're on softcore, it's not the thing you need to prioritize the most, especially because we are chilling and freezing bosses. So when they are chilled, they're going to attack less fast, and it'll be easier to dodge than for other builds. But that is definitely the hole in the build's tank, so keep that in mind. With that in mind, we do have extra info in the FAQ. So, for example, if you're having mana issues, this will tell you how to solve it. If you want to have less buttons, etc. So, a little extra help there for those that need it. I think that's really important to note for this build is while Cold DoT always looks like it has pretty low damage on paper, with a lot of testing, people found that it actually could end up having more damage than even builds that have up to twice as much damage on paper. But because of the way it works with placing down damage, and if the boss is leaving outside of that zone, you're not doing any damage anymore, builds like this have such a big advantage because we can have so much uptime. It's very easy to make sure that the boss is pretty much always standing in your damage, and that is a huge advantage for this build. While the damage is only showing 4 or 5 million DPS, it actually does feel quite high, and it ends up being an incredibly nice build to play. The one thing that's kind of neat this league is that there's a new life mastery, 15% max life if there are no life modifiers on equipped body armor. So if you manage to roll a really nice chest like this, but that has no life on it, but instead a lot of armor, you do end up solving a little bit of the armor issue on the build, and you can still pick up 15% increased life. It is slightly less than a really high life roll, but you get a lot of armor. So it is actually quite nice, and you have more options. I hope this video helps you have a great time in the upcoming Crucible League. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sub if you liked the video, but more importantly, try to die less than I do.